so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the pea heads themselves. I am your pea head enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head's social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to this show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge, huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. On this week's Pea Head Posse episode, our guest is Positive Head listener Niles Ackerman. Niles is an adventurer, truth seeker, and consciousness explorer. Having triumphed through dense mental obscurities in the form of anxiety and depression, he has kicked pharmaceutical treatment and discovered how to heal himself by connecting to his inner true nature. With the practice of meditation, diet, exercise, the Wim Hof method, and many other healing modalities, he has created his reality into one of liberation for his mind, body, and spirit. While living nomadically in a tiny home, he travels the United States volunteering on organic farms while seeking experiences that fulfill his intention of helping others and becoming the best version of himself that he can be. Hi, Niles. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so grateful and honored to be here today.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you reached out, and really excited to talk about this stuff. Your intro has me all excited. I'm living vicariously through you, thinking of you, being kind of a nomad. That's like something I've fantasized about my whole life, kind of. So that's really exciting. Why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, give us and the listeners an idea of your background and how you came to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sort of had like a traditional East Coast upbringing. And I went through school, I went to college, and through some sort of, I guess I would say, the catalyst for most of the expansion and adventure I've experienced recently has been you could call it sort of a mental rut that I was in. And whether you'd say that was sort of some sort of epigenetic predisposition in which I had fallen into, or that it was just my environment. It was probably a culmination of a bunch of different factors. But the result was I was just really tied up in my head. And I now have come to realize that I was really identifying with thoughts that I was thinking to myself, and just reacting to my environment rather than taking a grounded response to my environment. And so this had me I was a lot of my day-to-day interactions, and specifically my biggest fear was it was a social anxiety. And so day-to-day social interactions were somewhat of it was a hard thing for me, and it would put me into that fight or flight mode. And it was so I was taken to the doctor by my parents, and they gave me the pills that would supposedly magically make me feel better. And they did, to a certain extent, but there was a feeling inside of me that something was incomplete. And it was rather like sort of putting a band-aid on the problem and not really treating the underlying symptom. And so having like felt that uneasiness, while I did feel okay, I just decided to kick it and sort of pursue a different avenue in which to like pursue healing myself. And oh my gosh, what a door that is open. Like it just exploded my mind with so many different things, and like opened my eyes to so many different truths that have really been so beneficial for me. And one of the greatest things that I could do is help, or that I feel that I could do, is to sort of share these discoveries that I've made with others, to help them sort of discover their inner true nature and what they actually are, and connect with their true selves. And so having gone through this sort of wound, I like to say that, or Elliot Hulse will say that it is a wound you can turn into a womb. And so this like sort of rut that I was in has sort of dug a hole and planted some roots, and now a plant has risen and it is beginning to flower. And so I have so this like sort of rut that I was in has catalyzed this whole adventure and awakening and integration that I've, this like crazy roller coaster ride that I've been on. And yeah, so having, let's see, my first sort of breakout is when I ditched these pills that I was taking, and just picked up a practice of meditation. And the way that I began to start meditating was with Andy Rooney's app. What is the name of it? I can't think of the name of it right now. But it is just a simple app that has you meditate for 10 minutes a day. And it was so helpful for me just to get into the habit. Not that I was making immense progress in the beginning, but just I was dead set on pursuing a different avenue. And I knew that I had to pursue a different avenue because there was really no other option for me. I couldn't stand in the fear that I was in anymore. There was no way else for me to turn. And so by exploring first meditation, I was able to sort of break the identity with my thoughts. I think that was the first and biggest step that I was able to make. And so I started pursuing these different avenues that meditation led me down. And that sort of expanded into a bunch of different modalities. And now, whether that be like experimenting with plants, doing exercise, which I've always loved, immersing myself in a flow state, the Wim Hof method, or yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, fasting, anything like this, flotation tanks. And so, yeah, there's bits and pieces to take from each modality. And I don't think one necessarily is the absolute ticket for anybody, or for me anyways. It was just a culmination of all the things. But having explored this and sort of having my mind blown by the things that were out there that I hadn't that were ultimately right under my nose the whole time, but I sort of like discovered on this path, catalyzed me to begin to seek out different things that were aligned on this path for me. And so my first like sort of metaphysical experience was I met a guy named Harlan, and he was a practitioner of this meditation called heartfulness meditation, and it is derived from India. And there's this master called Babaji, and he is sort of like the head master of like sort of the energetic transmission that goes on. And so this guy named Harlan, he would sit down with me, and for 45 minutes, he would do this like very palpable heart transmission of energy. And it is intended to clear out the impressions left on your heart. And this, having meditated for maybe 6 months or so, really was a sign from the universe that I was absolutely on the right track, because this was just so expansive, and my mind was just blown in that like something not physical was interacting with me. And when I would sit down with this guy, it would be a roller coaster ride of this really palpable feeling. And it was ultimately a heart perception that I was experiencing and like going on a ride with. And so that was one gateway. And then after graduating, I ended up graduating with a business degree, which, when you pick your major, like at least for me, I wasn't necessarily aware of what my ultimate path was. And so I haven't necessarily pursued a business oriented thing, but maybe the knowledge will come into use in the future. Who knows? Regardless,
Yeah.
I had graduated and sort of felt this like really just in like this intuitive feeling that I had to listen to, which was to just really immerse myself in just get myself away from all sort of material things. And so I reduced all of my stuff, and it fit into this one little tiny home. It's like a little camper trailer that I dragged with me. And so that all that I had and all that I owned was the bare essentials of what I need. This little camper has a full size bed and a stove and a fridge. And wow, what a ticket to freedom it's been. I initially took it north through Canada and then down, and ultimately landed in Santa Cruz. And this is where I sort of was just drawn to Santa Cruz, and it just by scrolling around on Google Maps, I was like, okay, here we go. And so it turned out to be sort of this spiritual epicenter, in that I would go into town and every place would be a different yoga studio or something like this, in which I started to do some work trades, and I learned some Tai Chi and Qigong from some different people out there. And I ultimately met my beloved on November 11th. And so then we have,
11.
yeah, some synchronicity there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and then we sort of took up the journey together, and that's where we discovered this program called WOOF, WWOOF, and it stands for Worldwide Organic Farming. And this has been like sort of a vehicle for me to get out there and explore, in that it gives you a rest assured place to land wherever you'd sort of like to go. And so I've used that. So in Santa Cruz, I ended up moving about like 2 miles inland, and I was on this little eco farm. It was called Devante, and I was there introduced to practices and principles of permaculture and working with the land, and getting up and like feeding the chickens every day, and doing this kind of stuff, and just really like working with the earth, which I have found to be a very beneficial medium as far as like being connected, sort of like with the earth resonance, the 7.8 resonance of just having your bare feet in the ground and just being on that vibration. And so after a few months there, our time was up and we hit the road, and we have led a journey that went down through Utah, in which we met these super nice people, Mariah and Marshall, at Red Rock Adventures Farm in Cannonville, Utah, and sort of aligning with our intention of this whole journey of exploring not only ourselves, but what was truly out there, like in the United States, what people were doing in terms of like healing themselves, and contributing to a more harmonious and communal world. We stumbled in the heart of sort of Mormon country. We stumbled upon these beautiful people who grew up Mormon, but had within the past 10 years woken up and regained their own sovereignty. And it was so fascinating to hear all of their stories about how boxed and how like capacitated their minds had been in their upbringing and what they had unleashed. So you could draw the parallel sort of in that their wound became a womb for greater growth. And then we moved on. And once again in Utah, we were in Boulder, Utah this time, on another farm called the Rooted Center. And we met a really awesome guy named Silas, and he had worked as a meditation retreat practitioner in Northern California for 20 years or so. And he had just started a family on this 1-acre permaculture farm in Boulder, Utah. Absolutely out in the middle of nowhere. And these guys are like, it's not only a farm, but it's also a retreat center, so to speak, of like learning different Chinese medicines, and we're doing some qigong and kung fu over there. And what a fascinating guy! And so, yeah, after that adventure, we went on to we got in contact with Brian Besko of Twisted Sage Studios in South Dakota, and we ended up dragging our little home over there, and we lived in his front yard while we did this little apprenticeship for a week, learning how to make these like tensor rings with like copper technology. And so we learned sort of the ins and outs and how the tools are created etherically and manifest themselves on the physical plane and do all of this interdimensional work for the higher and greater good of everybody. And so ever since then, I've been like sort of crafting these little copper tools, the Hedikas, tensor rings, and he gave us some wands and stuff. We have all these different toys to play with, so that's been nice.
Wait, are those?
And yeah.
I don't want to interrupt your flow, but someone just showed me something. I think like you're talking about. It's like a tool that, or I think this is what you're talking about. It's like copper wire, basically in a sacred geometry type of pattern, but it essentially, they said, like re-energizes things, recalibrates things, realigns things. Is that what it is, or what do they do?
Yeah, it's a really expansive thing. They do some really great work on so many different levels, and it's not only in our physical plane that we see every day. Some of the examples are there's a one form called a Hedika, and it is a straight copper wire cut to a cubit length of the pyramid, which is 20.6 inches. And so that specific length anchors in this interdimensional energetic work. And so copper also being a medium that is a transducer of energy, like copper wires are all through our house carrying electricity. Yeah. In the same way that the electricity can be transmuted through them, you can also put intention into the copper. And so they use this photography called gas discharge photography, which measures, you can see on the screen, the difference in the radiation sort of the aura of the copper when you've put intention into it versus when you haven't. And Brian himself is a very tapped in individual. And like you were saying, yes, they actually have this one thing called this ascension chamber. And basically they have made out of tensor rings, they have a giant fruit of life, and it's basically on a massage table. And it's full of like these 29-inch giant tensor rings and the fruit of life, and you have a bunch of wands hanging down, basically creating this energetic chamber that holds the space for you to discharge and release and transmute and turn into love that which no longer serves you. And he also has created a meditation that goes along with it, that anchors you into the heart space and really just amplifies what this container is designed to do. And that was certainly a powerful experience that I've been lucky enough to encounter.
Wow. This is so great. I love this story. I feel like I'm on like a journey with you as you're telling it. I feel like I'm watching a movie, and it's really exciting, and I love where you're going. So I'm sorry. I feel like I interrupted you. Were you going somewhere else after the copper ring?
I'm almost to where I am now.
Okay.
So that was sort of the last big event that happened to us. And now I've landed in Golden, Colorado. And again, just like sort of at least for me, it's a demonstration of like the principles of the universe giving back to you when you put out a wholehearted good intention. I'd sort of started out like roughing it in camper, which is nice. Like I was nicely in tune with the rhythm of the sun and the moon going around the earth. Because it was so small, I was forced to be outside, which I did really enjoy. But having put forward this intention of now the universe has rewarded me with like we're staying in this house now, and we have access to this beautiful neighborhood. That's a village of about like 29 households or so, and we're responsible for the garden. And it's just one of the most enjoyable things to be able to put your love into the garden for the food and just provide fresh produce for the people in this. And I didn't necessarily expect it, but gardening for me, anyways, has turned into one of these healing modalities or methods. In that, or one of my favorite herbalists named Stephen Howard Buhner. He talks about heart perception and the intelligence of Gaia, the earth, and how that is expressed through plants and how you can communicate with that via your heart. And so, and also in alchemical healing, those practitioners talk about calling on plant spirits. This is just this is, I think, alluding to the same thing where you're communicating with the healing intelligence of the earth, and whether it's comfrey, a kale plant, or something that you would ingest that would be a psychedelic. There's a spirit of the plant intermingling with your being, your consciousness, and with the correct intention, you can extrapolate a healing from that, whatever the plant may be. And it's been amazing to be in the garden every day and work with that.
That's incredible. As you're talking about that, I'm looking over at my windowsill where my plants have been growing and growing. Like I started with 2, 3, then suddenly there's like 8 of them over there, and I'm just looking at them and have so much appreciation for them because they, I've been, becoming more and more aware of that as well. Our connection with Gaia and plants, and the things that we've thought for a long time are, inanimate, right? But it's like, I mean, we know that plants are alive, obviously, but I've also just been reading the Celestine Prophecy. I don't know if you've read that book, but
yeah, I just recently read that one.
Yeah, I feel like it's just making another big sweep, another big wave, because there's like a ton of people reading it all of a sudden. But it's talking about plant life and infusing love and and sharing energy and all of that. And I, the it's really cool to know that you're out there working in the gardens and that you're getting that benefit from being out there, as well as giving a benefit. I think it's such a, like I said, it's like everything you're talking about, I'm like, I want to do that. Like I want to be out in the gardens and I want to be connecting with the plants. And because it seems like to me, the more time that you spend out there, the more you resonate with their vibration, right? The more you kind of can have that connection. Because when we're inside all day, it's like I feel like it's harder for us to kind of come to that resonance. Or what have you gained from working with them? Any other insights into how we can connect with plants better?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll say is a lot of times the plant that needs you will come to you. It's not necessarily that you need to seek out the plant. Like if you are looking for, say, like a transcendental or psychedelic experience with a plant medicine of some sort, oftentimes I've seen in numerous stories that the plant will find them and not necessarily you seek the plant. And in this way, there sort of can be, or it negates most of, anyways, any malintentions with using the plant. And for me, anyways, it's a way to connect into my heart space, which is a way for me to get out of my analytical thinking mind. And ultimately, being in this space is where I'm able to radiate the most love, not only to the plants, but to the people that I happen to be in the garden working with. So yeah, on so many different fronts, I think just working with the plants, I guess even for your personal healing benefit, but also for the benefit of the greater good of our society. I think reestablishing our connection that may have been forgotten to the plants. They come from the soil. We came from the soil. I mean, it's all one thing, you know?
Definitely. Definitely. And, you spoke about, just popped into my mind, you spoke about, having your bare feet on the ground. And I think something that's been coming to my awareness that's, I don't know why, I just feel is suddenly so important to me is, grounding and like actually going out there and putting feet on the ground and how beneficial that is to our systems, to our energy systems, to the flow. Um, are you, are you aware of that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard like a lot of speculation on both sides too. Like, is there chemicals being transmuted through the bottoms of your feet?
Oh,
I think yes, to a certain extent, that's probably true. There's probably some sort of exchange there because your skin is a permeable membrane. You know, if you're stepping on the dirt, you're probably um, like picking up some of the organic matter or whatever it is that is coming that is in the soil and is coming through your feet. Likewise, if you're stepping on a field of grass that has been sprayed with some sort of pesticide, you may be picking up some of those toxins as well. But regardless, I think it ultimately comes down to your own discernment. If you feel that you are getting a benefit from walking outside with bare feet, like if that feels really good to you, like go for it. Like that's awesome. That's where the benefit is. Dr. Joe Dispenza will say, "You are the placebo. You can give yourself a placebo with the power of your belief that you are connecting in greater capacity with the earth." Via walking barefoot in the grass and the dirt and the sand, whatever. So, for me personally, yeah, I'll go barefoot wherever I can. I wish I could go to supermarkets.
me too. I never want to wear shoes, but I love that you are the placebo. That's a great quote. Wow. Because yeah, that's so
Yeah,
true. Whatever we believe, we make true, and so yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, so how did you find Positive Head?
I found the positive head, I believe, searching on iTunes in sort of my extensive search of like going online and finding things and people who are aligned with like going through or like expanding their good intention for the greater good of everybody, exploring consciousness, our awareness, like what are we actually doing here? The biggest fundamental questions that get overlooked by many. Really was just in a rabbit hole there and maybe discovered you guys about a year ago or so. And yeah, I mean, I'll tune into some sort of podcast every morning, whether it'll be Matt Belair, I love him, or you guys, or there's a couple others too. But just to have that wash of knowledge and start my day on some sort of positive note like that with some new, fresh information, a new story, just to like sort of absorb what I can and integrate throughout the day. It's a great routine.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. To connect to the community that is, on the leading edge of this for sure. That's, I think, why we all tune in. I mean, that's why I start my day with it every morning, and it really helps set my vibration right. So I'm super thankful for this existing and for being a part of it. And for talking to people like you who are, making it go and keeping it thriving and growing and expanding. I don't know why this just popped up to ask you. I don't usually ask people this, or the guests on the show this, but you were talking about, you mentioned something about finding your purpose, connecting to your gifts. What do you think your purpose/gifts are?
Yeah, that's a great question and totally something that I continuously seek to find more clarity on, certainly. Um, I feel, anyways, at this current moment that I want to grow my sort of selfless intention and create myself as a bridge for people who are thinking in a nothing. Not that there's anything wrong with thinking in a materialistic or just like a very physical based way, but I would like to create myself as a bridge in that I will like in speaking my truth, I will appeal to those people who are in that mind frame and begin to open their doors of perception to other realms that are right under our noses that I have sort of discovered for myself. And ultimately, I think for people to discover that and hold it as a truthful and real experience, it has to be their experience. They have to discover it. It's not necessarily something that can be told to them from somebody, you know? And so I think or I would love to anyways. And I feel myself sort of growing into this, that I just want to grow this intention of having myself be a bridge for people to, and by speaking my truth, be a bridge for people to expand their mind in that way and ultimately grow their vibration of love and then spread that to others and have um, this big extrapolation effect of just a greater sense of love between everybody. I think that's really what I would like to see.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I think we all resonate with that for sure. And on that same note, what what is one thing that you think would benefit every P head to know or understand as they continue on their own personal journey?
Yeah. Let's see. I would say that I have been in my path of seeking truth. I have been lost, sort of, to speak, numerous times in like rabbit holes of like really like criticizing the government or something like this, like criticizing others, or just like trying to distinguish. Oh, is this story true? Is this really going on? And I think it's pretty easy to get lost in that framework and like really just trying to discern if it's true or not. When actually, I think that the whole overarching purpose of seeking that truth is to ultimately result in you becoming a more harmonious being, and just ultimately radiating more positive energy into the world. So even if like crazy things are going on in the hierarchical system, yeah, it's something to accept that and then move beyond it just with the capacity of love. Like you won't beat it or anything by like giving it resistance. You just sort of have to accept, and ultimately just integrate it into your own being and transmute it into a positive vibration. One thing that has been really awesome for me, that I've learned from the Matt Belair podcast, is trying to do three acts of kindness per day. And this native elder, David Lombert Senepass, is sort of demonstrating how your being has an ultimate capacity to hold a vibration. And if you fill that with gratitude and you fill that with doing kind actions, it will raise your capacity to hold on to a positive vibration. And so the three acts of kindness per day look like they could just be as simple as asking somebody's name or how their day's going while you're waiting in line to get your groceries, or holding the door for somebody. But it ultimately results in you feeling like you're latching onto a feeling that you're contributing to a more harmonious world. And aside from any ideological belief or anything like that, anything that translates into you being a more harmonious being, I think is a great thing to adopt.
Definitely. Yeah, that was great. And it brought up for me thinking about, when you were mentioning just even saying hi to someone when you're in line, it's like, sometimes it's the simplest things that we can do that actually have the greatest impact. Like sometimes we think, oh, like I don't need to say hi to anyone, or I'm in a hurry, or I'm uncomfortable, so I'm going to look at my phone. And it's like, I've been that way a lot in my life. And just recently, it's like anytime I start to do that, there's something inside me that's like, are you really getting on your phone? Are you really going into your own little world right now when there's another human being standing right next to you that you could actually make a connection with and feel more connected to, and actually feel more connected? Because I think for me, the reason that when I'm down, I feel down is because I feel disconnected. I feel separate from people. I feel like disconnected for whatever reason. And it's like people are right there in front of us. And it's so easy. I mean, it's so simple to just be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And it's funny because it's like something that's almost looked at as weird now if you would do that like in some places. But it's just something that just keeps coming up for me every time I want to take out my phone because I feel uncomfortable. There's just something that taps my shoulder that's like, really? Like, why don't you connect? And I think that connection, or from my perspective at least, that connection is what we're all really looking for in some way or another, right? Because we become so disconnected that we all feel like that's the thing that's missing.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I think even if you were looking down at your phone, what you're ultimately seeking is a genuine connection, a greater capacity for gratitude, and that is always available in the present moment. You can look up from your phone and yeah, exactly, be excited and grateful to connect with this other amazing human being that might be standing right next to you. Um, I mean, we all came from this one singularity explosion, and we are the stardust that has been burning at 1,000,000 degrees for billions of years in stars and has somehow coalesced into where we are today. We are all this one thing, and anything like separation is an illusion. If you are projecting some sort of negative emotion or something like that, that is a reflection of you. And ultimately taking responsibility for any sort of feeling that arises within you or any action, I also think is a very powerful idea to adopt and integrate, because you then come to the realization that you are the ultimate dictator of your inner world, how you feel. You can choose that. It's not anybody else's fault. It's ultimately up to your own discernment how you are going to feel moment to moment. And I think the best way to connect with that is be mindful of your breath, be mindful of the present moment. It's so simple, but often overlooked and not so easy to do.
Totally, totally. I just had that moment today where I got that tap on the shoulder again that was like, "Hey, why don't you just find a way to love this moment right here, because this moment is all you have. It's all you have. There's nothing else. You think there's other things. You think there's something else off in the distance, but really that's just another now, you know? So if you're not loving this moment, if you're not finding a way to appreciate this now, then what are you doing? When are you ever going to appreciate anything? When are you ever going to be happy? You know? And it's so simple, but it's like it's truly takes sometimes for me, especially it takes like a couple of days of being down to get that tap on the shoulder, to get that clarity, to be like, hey, it's as simple as appreciating this very moment right here for what it is. You know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one thing that helps me too when I'm going through these waves of sort of positivity and negativity as well, is I think back to just the nature of a wave, like in the ocean. Once a wave forms, they vary in sizes and all of these different things. Once a wave forms, it crashes and then it goes away. It's still water the whole time, and I think like you could draw the correlation between that is what your awareness is. You are the water the whole time. And you can sort of step back and observe these different waves pass by. Some are big ones and you'll be down for a week, maybe two. Others are, somebody sets you off and it was a little ripple in the water in that you're over it in 5 minutes, something like that. But just connecting with the fact that you are the fabric of what makes those waves, and to observe that happening, I think also is another beneficial perspective to help us raise in vibration.
Yeah, I love that. I actually have a wave tattoo on my wrist that I got very spontaneously when I was like, I don't know, 3 or something, and it's one of my
Yeah,
favorite tattoos because of that. But now I love thinking about that, about the crest and the call the opposite of that in the wave, the
the
valley.
trough.
Yes, the crest and the trough. Because they're both necessary to create the wave. I was giving this example the other day of like a roller coaster, right? Is like, if the roller coaster was all peaks, then how would you have any fun at all? You wouldn't, because there would be nothing to fall down. There would be nothing, there would be no rush, right? And it's like the wave is the same way. It's like there are two parts of it to make it a wave. If otherwise it would just be flat water. So it's like the wave is representative of motion, of momentum. And so it's like and for me, my biggest thing is learning to appreciate and understand that the trough is just as important as the crest, because it all makes momentum, you know? So,
Right.
totally, totally. But I love that. I love what you said but it's still water. Like we're all water no matter what. Like that is what we are, and that we're the fabric of life. Um, So, well, what are you working on now? I mean, you've been traveling all over. You're said you're in like a location now that you're in a neighborhood working on it. But what are you thinking about for the future? I mean, I feel like you should have your own podcast or something. That's all I'm saying.
I have my own. I've only done like 2 episodes or so. It's called my little mission. I've sort of labeled my intention, and it's called The Adventure of Truth, because I'm like leading this adventure, seeking truth and trying to spread it.
Love that.
And so, yeah, I've got a little website going on that I post little blog articles. If I learn something or like have something profound happen to me, I'll write about it and post on this little blog. I'm also, this is actually the first podcast that I've ever done. So in that way, I'm trying to also practice spreading I guess my intention, and also for me personally, like move past my fear. Like doing a podcast like this, like knowing that I'm talking to a bunch of people is a big step for me, and that I'm facing like punching these demons in the face, like that used to be my biggest fears, and I'm just working for myself to try to move past that and just completely transcend that vibration. But I'm also working on a couple of projects in that I'm looking to get into urban farming. As far as the structure of the way that like our current food system, our society has like based it around food. There's a lot of centralization going on with where the food comes from. And with that centralization, there's a lot of intermediary factors that are sort of involved in like growing the food, getting the food to where it needs to be. And I just want to bring like this centralized farming, whether it be in the flat plains of Nebraska or in the plains of California. There's actually some food that goes to New York that is grown in California. And I just don't really see a reason for that. Yes, it will be cheaper over there. I guess that is the reason. But ultimately, for the health of not only ourselves, but the planet, it is much more resource efficient to grow the food where it's going to be. And so I'm looking into this avenue of urban farming, in which there's a couple of different people who are really killing it right now. Elon Musk's brother is running this company in New York City, actually, called Square Roots. And he's growing the equivalent of 2 acres of farmland in one shipping container. And he's doing this with an aquaponic system. It's a really bio-intensive process where they're growing a high density of crop. And he's growing not necessarily root vegetables, but you can do a lot of greens in there, which I think is a huge benefactor moving forward, and is going to. I'm a big fan of anything like decentralized. I want to share everything, like make it as efficient as possible. And so I'm looking to start growing my own things in that way, and start selling to restaurants. I do have access to a bunch of land in this garden. So I'm looking to do that. I'm looking to do online content creation. So I've been I've been creating different videos and things. I've been learning. I'm sort of in a rabbit hole now of water and the structure of water and the health and vitality of our water. And so right now I'm working on putting a presentation together of like what the underlying sort of things that are involved in water. And currently, like an overarching view would be, I'm sort of discovering that there's 2 separate sort of domains of your cup of water. There's the chemical composition, which you'll have your minerals like the magnesium in many water supplies. Public water supplies is going to be chlorine and fluoride, constituents like that. So that would be the chemical composition. And then there's also this other element, like the molecular structure, which is the coherency of the bonding that is going on at the molecular level of the molecules in the water. So there's a factor called the ORMUS, which is the presence of free oxygen radicals, and the free oxygen radicals within the water are able to increase the amount of hydrogen bonding that goes on. And an increased amount of hydrogen bonding results in a more coherent structure. and it's all based in sacred geometrical planes, and all like the way that the molecules bond together are all the platonic solids, which is in resonance with like like a harmonious vibration in the universe. And so if your water is structured in this way, you're taking in these like this molecular structure of water, and it's going into your body. And if you think about it, like humans are 70% water. It is like taking in this coherent molecular structure of this water is allowing you to energetically open up and transduce electricity that much more efficiently and transparently. So in that way, it's a great way, at least for myself. I found a huge benefit from drinking spring water straight from the spring. So I'll make now a very conscious effort to go harvest my water from a spring, and then to protect it from any sort of vibrations that might be in the surrounding environment that I'm keeping it in. I'm placing these copper tools on it. So I'll place the Hedeka on there, which carries the energetic imprint of harmonious water, which gets translated into the water. And I'll also put a tensor ring on it, which is transmitting this toroidal field of energy into the water, which is also harmonious and restructuring it. Twisted Sage Studios has a bunch of studies on these, on how it actually translates or like fixes the water structure. You can do it also without the copper tools as well. You can create a vortex. That is one of the natural ways that water will gain structure. If you think about it, it's going down all of these streams, and then there's rivers. And if you look in rivers too, you'll see the little spirals of where the water is forming into a vortex. That is where the water is gaining its structure, bouncing off all of these different rocks and being natural. I've also learned that the way that we take in minerals through water is actually greatly impaired with the addition of chlorine. The reason they put chlorine in there is because water has to stay stagnant. And you can look at it energetically as if something's stagnant, it will create a block or some sort of distortion or sickness. And if you look at stagnant water, it's going to have a bunch of bacteria, potentially sickness for our human bodies. And so when water is stored, because it's stagnant, that's why they put the chlorine in there, so it doesn't contract any of these negative bacteria or anything. But in doing so, the chlorine removes these things called fulvic acids. And these are carbon-based molecules that allow the minerals that are going to be bioavailable for our human bodies in the water. They are, once the chlorine is added, they're no longer in bioavailable form. And so when the minerals are naturally in water, they're in carbon-based form from microbes interacting with these different acids. And so, there's many other constituents like the fluoride, which contributes to the calcification of your pineal gland. And I guess I'm going on a rant here.
I was going to say, don't even get me started on, because water is like a huge passion of mine. So you're speaking right in my alley. And I've been fluoride and all of that is just like something I've been trying so hard to find a workaround for. And I finally found, anyway, sorry, go ahead. Continue what you were saying. I love it all.
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar, and the listeners are familiar with Dr. Emoto's work with your intention into water. And yeah, you don't necessarily need any of these fancy copper tools. You can simply put your hands on a glass of water and speak good words into it, or you can just make a little prayer or something like that. And while it is somewhat of a metaphysical concept, it is actually changing something. We are all connected.
Yep.
And so,
I was on a retreat to become an EFT practitioner several months ago, and we did a huge water blessing day. And ever since, I've been blessing my water. And if you're listening to this and want to test it out, take 2 glasses of water and leave the one glass alone, and take the other glass and put it between your hands and say a little prayer over it, or imagine light bouncing between your hands, like back and forth, or in like back and forth, like vertical, horizontal, and up and down. And think infuse it with positive emotions, positive words, and then taste that water and then taste the other water, and you absolutely will taste a difference. It is my guarantee. And I was pretty amazed when we did that, how much it changes the consistency of water. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In that same way, too, to go back to gardening, you are putting your love and intention into the food or into the vegetable, the crop that you're growing, which is mostly water. And so in the same way, you are reaping more of a benefit, more of a healing, more of a nutrition from those plants that you are working with. There's just so many things are filled with water, and anything that is filled with water, you can really put this intention into and receive a benefit, I think.
And the crazy thing too is that all you need is one drop of that blessed water or purified water or water that has that high vibration, and put that into water that hasn't had that's just regular water, and it will immediately change that vibration. Like so one drop of water that's high vibration will infuse or will transform other water it touches. So it's really powerful. And just speaking on what you were talking about with farming, it's the same. Like, have you ever been cooking and been in a really bad mood, and then the food turns out bad? I mean, like you burn something, or it doesn't taste good. And it's like when I'm in a really good mood and I'm cooking, oh my gosh, I have cooked some things that I can't even believe that I've cooked. Yeah. It's so delicious. And it's all because it's the vibration and energy that you're putting into that food when you're cooking. So
yeah, it's like there's an extra ingredient of love in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, where can people, you are super knowledgeable, and I'm sure people will want to be following you and eating up more of this stuff. So where can people find you?
Yeah, right on. So I'm at theadventureoftruth.com. That is the link to my blog. I'm also on Patreon as well, which is also linked on the blog, or the Adventure of Truth Patreon page. If you'd like to support my mission that way. I'm also on Steemit as of recent, this new sort of interwoven cryptocurrency website that allows you to sort of get paid for for the content that you're creating based on the popularity of what you are creating. So that's a cool one. And yeah, I will pretty soon be finished with this water presentation, so I'm excited to release that. I've also written an ebook as well that's available on Amazon and also through my website. And that is sort of outlining the profound and major truths, and a lot of them are pretty simple that I sort of discovered on my path to like regaining my own sovereignty, liberating myself, and moving past the bubble of fear that I used to be in.
Awesome. Well, just a couple more questions here. One is, do you have any fun or inspiring manifestation stories?
Yeah, I'm day to day. I love riding bikes. And the other day I was trying to I needed a new pump or something. And I was sitting in my room being like, oh, I really need a new pump. I walk outside to go to the store to get a new pump. One of these the members of the like, hey, you want this bike pump?
I love that.
It's almost sort of like it's a weekly occurrence where something synchronistic like that will sort of happen. And a lot of times in the past anyways, I would have glanced over them. But it's just becoming so evident now that it's proving to me that once you put the intention out there, it is sort of answered. It's not sort of an on-demand thing, but it comes more frequently. You modify the future probability of something happening with your intention. And so I think my biggest manifestation story would have to be, I think it's myself and the way that I have been living. I used to be this completely logically minded, had to be scientific based, clean cut hair, all of this stuff. And since I haven't cut my hair,
he has really long hair.
Years,
since you can't see.
Yeah. And I've completely simplified everything. So sort of you can see inside of me, in the way that the physical things around me are manifested. I'm living I'm living in this tiny little home. I got some like really long hair. And it's just like, yeah, I'm not so tied up with the physical things anymore, but I'm rather like simplifying in order to immerse myself into the more metaphysical components of this reality that we're in. So I think that would be my biggest sort of most remarkable manifestation.
I love that. That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm looking at you now, and it's really hard for me to imagine you as how you were describing. You feel so natural, like the way that you are. You feel so comfortable the way that you are. So yeah, that's a huge transformation. That's amazing. And so last question here: what is your intention, or do you have an intention for 2018? Even though 2018 is already halfway over.
Yeah, I have to say again, it's just expand myself in every way that I can and do whatever that I can do to help people realize who they truly are. As simple as that. And what that looks like is me doing things and being more comfortable with myself, and like ultimately just being a better being, having a higher vibration, and carry that day to day and affect as many people as I can in that way, and help out in any way that I can, and also seize up any opportunity that I see for a potential for me to grow that intention. I think that's it.
That's awesome. Being a better being. I like that. It needs to be like a bumper sticker or something. Well, Niles, this was really, really, really awesome. You have so much amazing wisdom to share. I'm sure people will be catching you on your website. And yeah, stay in touch. I'm excited to see what happens with you. And thank you for coming on here and sharing your story.
Yeah, Alexa, thank you so much. So grateful to have had the opportunity to share this story today. It's awesome.
Awesome. That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another P-Head Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.